This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. Parshas Terumah. We're going to talk today about the Aron, the Keruvim, the Badim. Pasuk says, "V'asisa shnayim Keruvim zav." You should make 2 Keruvim of gold. Miksha ta'asoisam. Bang them out. Mishnei ketzois ha-kapoiras, from the 2 ends of the kapoiras. So, as far as I'm concerned, we have all the information we need. It says, make 2 Keruvim on the 2 edges of the kapoiras. Finished. Then the pasuk says, "Va'aseh Keruv echad mikatza mizeh, u'keruv echad mikatza mizeh, min ha-kapoiras, ta'asu as-hakruvim al shnei ketzois." Make 1 Keruv on one end, and 1 Keruv on the other end. From the kapoiras itself, you should make the Keruvim on the 2 edges. I mean, we just said that in Pasuk Yudches. What are we adding in Pasuk Yudches? It already said make 2 Keruvim, put them on the 2 edges. So obviously you put 1 on one edge, 1 on the other. What is Pasuk Yudches adding? Put 1 on one edge, put 1 on the other. So Rashi says, "Ba'asei Keruv echad mikatza, shaloi toimar," so that you don't say, "Shnayim Keruvim l'chol katza v'katza." You see, if you would read Pasuk Yudches, you would think, make 2 Keruvim on the 2 ends. So what does that mean? 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. So therefore the pasuk comes and clarify. You know what I mean? Only 1 on one side, 1 on the other side. It doesn't mean 2 on one side, 2 on the other side.
So says from the beginning.
Yeah. So Shlomo is asking, so why be unclear and then have to clarify? So say straight. Make 1 Keruv on one side, 1 Keruv on the other. You don't need your ches, you don't need your test. Say it straight. I mean, talk backwards and then you need to have to clarify. Just say it kipshutai. Well, what Rashi's saying, and also, why would I think, if the Torah says make 2 Keruvim, why would I think it means 2 on one side, 2 on the other side? It says make 2, and then it says, where should you put them? On the 2 ends. I mean, I would really think 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. Why would I think that?
It just told you to in the first place.
And if you would, right, exactly. So first of all, if I would think it, so say it straight. And second of all, why would I really think that? Okay. Also, very interesting. Pasuk Yudches, it says v'yasisa, you should make. Pasuk Yudches, it says va'aseh, make. Not you, make. So, who is Pasuk Yudches addressed to? Pasuk Yudches seemingly is addressed to Moshe Rabbeinu, you should make. Or it's addressed to Klal Yisrael, you should make. Why would it change Pasuk Yudches and say va'aseh and make? Well, what is this? Okay, so we know about the Aron. The pasuk says, look at number 3. Betabois ha'aron yiu habadim lo yasuru mimenu. In the rings of the Aron, the badim should be. They should not be removed. Zak Rashi lo yasuru mimenu le'olam. You're never allowed to take out the badim ever. Very strange thing. See, the shulchan and other kelim of the mizbeach. So you need the badim to carry it, right? But the Aron was noiseas noisav. The Aron carried those who carried it. So if the Aron carried those who carried it, you don't need the badim. So if you don't need the badim, that would be the one kli that you could take out. And yet the Torah says, the mizbeach, you want to take it out? Fine. The shulchan, you want to take it out? Fine. The Aron? No. Lo yasur mimenu. Why should that be? Okay. Mamish, we find, if you look through Sefer Malachim, by the way, there's a very good sefer out there called Sefer Malachim. There are no haskamas, but still a good sefer. You should still, yeah. So it says like this: those who, if you're familiar with the Nevi'im a little bit, you know that Shlomo HaMelech, mamish hafla b'fela, by the Bayis Rishon, if you would go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so we would expect what's in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Aron and the 2 Keruvim, which are hovering over the Aron. If you would go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you would see a new thing. Besides the Aron, besides the Keruvim, you know what else were there? Other Keruvim. The Keruvim of Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo made 2 Keruvim that stood on the 2 ends of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. They were 10 amos tall, and they hovered over the entire Aron. Look, Psukim in Malachim. In Malach, take a look at number 6. Vayas badvir shnei Keruvim. So you say, oh, maybe it's the same Keruvim. No, atzei shaman, olive wood. Eser amos kaimasai, 10 amos tall. These are not talking about the Keruvim on the Aron. They're talking about other Keruvim. V'chamesh amos knaf hakruva eches, v'chamesh amos knaf hakruva shenis. These two Keruvim are hovering over the entire Aron. They're hovering over the entire Aron. In other words, you know how much space these two Keruvim took up? You had one Keruv on one side, one Keruv on the other side, and they hovered over the entire Aron, over the entire Keruvim, and took up the entire space of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Yeah? Ve'eser ba'ama hakruv hasheni, mida achas, ve'ketzav echad, l'shnei hakruvim, kaimas hakruv echad eser ba'ama, v'chein hakruv hasheni. So we hear, mamish hafla v'fella, that even though the Torah says make an aron, and make how many kruvim? 2 kruvim, and put the 2 kruvim on the cover of the aron, Shlomo HaMelech, you hear what he does? He makes another 2 kruvim. And where are they standing? They're not standing on the aron. They're standing next to the Aron. These 2 guys, they have their feet on the ground.
Wow.
Big, 10 amos tall. 20 feet. Imagine? Chazoy Nish size. Right? 20 feet tall. Can you imagine? You have a big guy, he's 6 feet tall. 3 times the size. Huge. 10 amos tall. You go into Kodesh HaKadoshim, you probably, you'd faint out of fear. You have these 2 big Keruvim. They're hovering over the entire Aron. So the question is, how's he allowed to do that? The Torah says make 2 Keruvim out of the Aron. How is Shlomo allowed to do this? So the Chida asks, take a look at number 8 for a moment. Kasha, Eich Shlomo, Olav HaShalom, Shalom Echel HaShalom, Asa Shnei Keruvim Acherim, Atzei Shemen, Menachem Al HaKarka, Zeh B'tzad Zeh. I mean, who told him to do this? It's not like, the Beis HaMikdash is open to interior decorators to, change the look. You want to freshen up the look. Who told Shlomo HaMelech to do this? So Rabbi say, those who joined us this past summer for Sefer, for Masechta Tamid, Masechta Midos, so we learned, I told you that if there's one thing to remember, you have to remember the Pasuk in Divrei Hayamim. Remember it? Of course. Exactly. The Pasuk says, look at number 11, HaKoil V'chsav Miyad Hashem Olai Hiskil. Everything is in writing. By the hand of Hashem, He gave me understanding. Kamalachois hatavnis, all the works of the plan. In other words, David HaMelech is saying, it's not like I decided on my own how the Mizbeach should look, how the menorah should look, how the wall should look. Every detail that I am doing, or changing, or fixing, or doing a little differently than Moshe, I got for Ruach HaKodesh. HaKoil b'chsav miyad Hashem olai, hiskil kamalachas hatavnis. That is not. So Rabbi say this. In other words, every detail of Bayis Rishon was not innovated, was not created. It was given Baruch HaKodesh. Right. Okay, but the problem is that's nice and dandy. But there's one problem: that ein navi rashay lechadesh davar. That means even if the Rebbeinu Shalom tells the Navi, you put tefillin on the head, tefillin on the arm, and tefillin, around your waist, so tell him, get lost, right? Get lost. The Torah is closed, right? Hashem gave to Moshe Rabbeinu 613 mitzvahs. Ein Navi Rashay L'chadesh Davar. It's a common expression in the Gemara. They couldn't even change the oisiyos, right? The Gemara Megillah discusses the oisiyos haTorah Ksav Ashuris, the mem and the samach shebeluchos. But very nice, says the Chida, that he says, Yesh Shloimar b'navua hakol miyad Hashem olav hiskel v'hakol b'ruach hakodesh. But ask the Chida, v'im kolzeh kasha. A Navi is only allowed to make temporary changes. He cannot make any permanent changes. So what right did Shlomo HaMelech have? Very nice. So you say, what do you mean what right? Hashem came to Shlomo. He said, Shlomo, make another 2 Keruvim. Shkoyach. He still can't add to the Keruvim of Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? What did Hashem tell Moshe? Kachal asher ani mare oischa eis tavnis hamishkan v'eis tavnis kolkalav v'chein tasu l'doros. Whatever Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, that's what everybody has to do. So that's what everyone has to do. What right did Shlomo have to add 2 Keruvim? Okay, that's what we're going to deal with. Comes our Chaim HaKadosh. Look at number 5. And the Chaim HaKadosh asks, amazing piece. Oid matzinu. She'asa Shlomo Beis Keruvim.
You mean that's not a rhetorical question?
What?
That's not a rhetorical question. It's a specific answer.
No, it's a very serious question. That how could Shlomo HaMelech add Keruvim? But Hashem told him, sorry, the same way, the architectural plans were closed. Once, whatever Hashem told Moshe, finished. Cannot be added to, cannot be changed, cannot be tweaked. Right? That ain't Navi Rashay l'chadesh davar. A Navi is not allowed to make any changes. So says the Or Chaim HaKadosh, take a look. Oid Matzinu. Sha'asa Shlomo. The concept that Shlomo made 2 added Keruvim is very mystifying to me. It's very intriguing to me. Here you have a Mishkan. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu the exact plans, and Shlomo, what does he add? You have 2 little Keruvim on the Aron. Shlomo adds these 2 huge Keruvim. Now, if he did it, let's say outside the Beis HaMikdash, or even in the Chatzer, or in the Heichal, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. I mean, if anybody would go in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, they would die.
That's right.
Right? Only the Kohen Gadol, only on Yom Kippur, only Ki Be'anan. And here Shlomo is putting in these huge figures. Right? We know, by the way, Rashi says that if you make, instead of 2 Keruvim, 4 Keruvim, Avodah Zarah. Remember when Rashi talks about the making of the Keruvim, Rashi warns us very carefully that you have to be careful not to add to the Keruvim. And here Shlomo HaMelech, he's making 4 Keruvim. The Torah says adding Keruvim is Avodah Zarah. And that's exactly what Shlomo HaMelech did. So take a look at the Or Chaim HaKadosh says, Matzinu she'asa Shlomo beis Keruvim, shnayim noisafim mama she'asa Moshe, v'nimtzu dalet Keruvim. Asher lo yitziv Hashem. God never commanded 4 Keruvim. Gam mishunim shinoi gadol mikruvei Moshe. They were very, very different from Moshe's Keruvim. V'nireh.
Maybe that's why it's okay. If you make something different, it's okay.
Why is that? It's worse. It's worse. What?
No, if you make it.
So, they were smaller. Exactly. Where's the Chumash? You have the Chumash? They were not 10 feet tall. Okay? They were not 10 feet tall. Okay. So the question is, Rabbi Sai, how is Shlomo allowed to do this? V'nireh? Ki hakasav ramzam. You know how Shlomo is allowed to do this? Because Hashem told him to. This alluded to in the pasuk. B'masha amar v'asisa shnayim Keruvim mishnei k'tzos hakaparas. And then it says v'asei keruv echad u'keruv v'kasha lama hotzuch loymar beis pamim hamasa v'asisa v'asei. Why are there 2 psukim in pasuk yud ches v'asisa in pasuk yud tes v'asei? Pasuk yud ches says make 2 Keruvim. Pasuk yud tes says make 2 Keruvim. Oid kasha shekol akasav miyutar. The whole pasuk is extra. Ki me'oimroi mi beis k'tzos hakaparas. Because once it says in pasuk yud ches that they should be on the 2 ends of the kaparas, move on who? Shekruv echad mikatza. It's self-understood. Where are they? One on one side, one on the other side. So Rashi says, no, I need pasuk yud tes, because had it just been for pasuk yud ches, I would think 2 on one side, 2 on the other. No, says Or Chaim, I would never have thought that. It says explicitly, mishnei k'tzos hakaparas. Oid, another question. Why in pasuk yud tes does it say al shnei kitzoisav on the 2 ends? It already said that in Yud Ches. Mishnei kitzos hakaparas. Achein. Says Or Chaim HaKadosh. You know why Shlomo made 2 Keruvim? Because Hashem alluded to Moshe that if he wants to, he could also make an extra 2 Keruvim. Different ones, right? Ram as Hashem lamasa beis Keruvim sheyasu beveis olamim melvad Keruvim sheyasa Moshe. Hashem is alluding to Moshe Rabbeinu, to the 2 added Keruvim in the times of the Beis HaMikdash that Moshe didn't make. Keneged ma sheyasa lefisha, according to the first set of Keruvim that Moshe Rabbeinu is making. Amar v'yasisa. First Hashem tells Moshe, v'yasisa, you make 2 Keruvim. You Moshe, you make 2 Keruvim. And Keneged, the Keruvim in the Beis HaMikdash, then Hashem says, v'asei, not you Moshe make 2. But there will come a time where it will be made another 2 Keruvim. In other words, pasuk yud ches says Or Chaim HaKadosh, Moshe, you make 2. and then va'aseh. Doesn't say again v'asisa. It says va'aseh. Make. Who? You'll find out. Va'aseh. In other words, loy diber elav lenoichach. He didn't speak to him directly. Ela kemitzada ala siacheres lizman acher. It's like Hashem is commanding that there will come a time that another two will be made, that besides the two Keruvim mentioned in Pasuk Yud Ches, another two Keruvim will be made a little bit differently. Those Keruvim will not be standing on the Kaporos. Those two Keruvim are going to be on the two sides. Rabbi said, look how meduyik it is. Pasuk Yud Ches, it says, Mishnei Ketzais HaKaporos. The ones that you, Moshe, make, they're coming out of the Kaporos itself. But the ones that you're not going to make, the ones that are just going to be made, Al Shnei Ketzaisav, they are just going to be on the two ends.
Well, what did it say Atzei Shaman? It said Zav.
It doesn't say, what?
How come he did it from Atzei Shaman and not from Zav?
No, the first time it says Zav Miksha. The second time it says just make them. Doesn't say the details. Doesn't say how. So then, since it doesn't say how, so Shlomo had Ruach HaKodesh, how to make it. But it's not adding, because they never had details exactly how to make the Keruvim. So that's how the Ar Chaim reads the Pasuk. In other words, it says Ar Chaim HaKadosh, that how is Shlomo allowed to make two Keruvim? And we would add, well, how is he allowed to? Even though he had Ruach HaKodesh, but Ein Navi Rashay L'Chadesh Davar. What's the answer? Hashem told him to. Hashem told Moshe, a time will come when another two Keruvim will be made. You don't have to do it. All you have to do is Pasuk Yud Ches. Pasuk Yud Ches v'asisa. What will be made later? That will be va'aseh. That will be va'aseh.
Also, Shlomo, Zotiyot LeMoshe.
Oh, okay.
Zotiyot LeMoshe. LeMoshe. Shlomo.
Rabbi, if you have one set of Keruvim, what do you need another set for?
We're going to get
That's
it. Also, you made 10 minutes.
This is Kabbalah. This is Kabbalah.
No. If you look at you want to say how big the Keruvim were on the Aron? Doesn't say. Doesn't say. Okay?
the old shul have the Keruvim on the thing.
No, we're not dealing with the Keruvim on the Parshas.
That's also a problem. They don't do that anymore. And they used to sell those. They used to make those in the shuls in East New York and all.
Okay.
They used to make those Keruvim.
Okay. So Rabbi say. By the way, I just want to add, I'm remembering now that the Chassam Sofer writes in a tshuva addressing a different issue about different changes that were made in the Bayis Rishon, that how are they allowed to do this? Very nice, Hakol b'chsav miyad Hashem alai hiskil, but still, ein navi rashay l'chadesh davar, says the Chassam Sofer, that you read the pasuk like this, K'chol asher ani mare oischa, whatever I show you, is tavnis hamishkan, is tavnis kol kelav, b'chein ta'asu. The same way I showed you what to do, Moshe, I am telling you that I will show other Nevi'im. So I ain't Navi Rashay L'Chadesh Davar. That's when Hashem didn't tell Moshe that he's going to be giving further details to the Nevi'im. But by the Mishkan it says explicitly what? I am going to tell you, I'm telling you that details to follow for upcoming events. To be announced. In other words, the Chassam Sofer reads the pasuk, K'chol asher ani mara oischa, is tavnis hamishkan, ve'is tavnis kokel v'chein ta'asa. V'chein ta'asa means TBA. The details are forthcoming. Okay. Chida adds that there's another remez to Moshe Rabbeinu that other luchos are going to be built. What's the remez? It says, where does Hashem speak to Moshe from? Mi bein shnei hakruvim asher al aroin ho'edos. From between the Keruvim that is on the Aroin Ho'edos. Right? So imagine if I tell you, I'm going to speak to you from Kailal Igur de Pirka. That's in Rabbi Obam Shul. So what's that mashma? Why do I have to say Kailal Igur de Pirka? That's in Rabbi Obam Shul. Where else is it? That's the only place it could be. I have to tell you Kailal Igur de Pirka in Rabbi Obam Shul. That's mashma, as opposed to Kailal Igur de Pirka in some other location. I mean, the fact that I'm detailing where the Kailal Igur de Pirka is, that implies, as opposed to some other Kailal in a different location. So why does the Torah have to say, Hashem spoke to Moshe, Mi bein shnei hakruvim, asher al hakaporos? Where else are the shnei kruvim? Right? It says, Mi bein shnei hakruvim, asher al aroin ho'edos. Of course, between the two Keruvim that's on the Arayin. Where else are the two Keruvim? That's mashma as opposed to another two Keruvim. So says the Chidah, this also is a remez to the fact that there are another two Keruvim. Says the Chidah further, by the way, this is all, right, and this is all he's quoting from a Rishon, Reb Vidal Hatzarfasi. Reb Vidal, yeah? Look at number, Pasuk Chaf. It says about the Keruvim, Upneim Ishal Achiv, Ela Kapoiras, Yiu Pnei HaKeruvim.
What's it called?
It says like this, El HaKapoiras, again, Pasuk Chaf, right?
והיו הקרובים.
El HaKapoiras, Yiu Pnei HaKeruvim. Those are the two Keruvim of Shlomo. And then early in the Pasuk says, Upneim Ishel Achiv. In other words, we have a stira menei in the Pasuk. First the Pasuk says the Keruvim are facing each other. And then the Pasuk says the Keruvim are facing the Kapoiras. So are they facing each other, or are they facing the Kapoiras? Says Reb Vidal Hatzarfasi, quoted by the Chidah, the two on the Kapoiras are facing each other, and the two outside of the Kapoiras are facing the Kapoiras. So Rabbi said what we're learning is that even though Hashem told Moshe about two Keruvim, there are different hints, there are different remazim, there are different allusions to the fact that besides to the Keruvim on the Kapoiras itself, there are going to be another two Keruvim outside of the Kapoiras. Rabbi said, take a look at the Chassam Sofer, look at number 9 for a moment. He says, Rashi said that why do I need Pasuk Yud Tes? After I have Pasuk Yud Ches, Rashi said, had it just been for Yud Ches, I would think what? I would think that the two on one side, two on the other. So therefore Pasuk Yud Tes says no. What? It's one on one side, one on the other. Yeah. So ask the Chassam Sofer. This was Shlomo's kasha. So say it straight. Just say Pasuk Yud Tes, one on one side, one on the other.
Yeah.
Says the Chassam Sofer, no. The Rebbeinu Shalom is hinting to the fact. You know why? Right? The question is, if Hashem wanted, if you were going to think two on one side, two on the other, so skip the whole pasuk and just say one on one side, one on the other. Says the Chassam Sofer, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to think two on one side, two on the other. You know why? Because there are two on one side and there are two on the other side. Because in the Beis HaMikdash, there were two on one side, one on the Aron, one outside of the Aron, and on the other side, one on the Aron, one on the other side of the Aron. However, says the Chassam Sofer, not only was Hashem telling Moshe a time will come where there will be two additional Keruvim, Hashem is telling Moshe, if you want, you could make two additional Keruvim. But, you don't have to. You have to do a minimum one and one. In other words, take a look at the Chassam Sofer on the 5th line. V'yesh li diuk. He has a question on Rashi. Im kein lama ksiv betchila al shnei ketzos. Why at first, if you're going to think 2 and 2 and then clarify it, no, 1 and 1, so just write 1 and 1. Why would it first say v'asisa and then ba'aseh? Says the Chassam Sofer, look at number 9. V'nir lani es daiti. Shahakadosh Baruch Hu nasan loy reshus lasos kruvim kfulim im yirtzeh. God is giving Moshe permission to make 2 kruvim on one side, 2 kruvim on the other side if he wants. Ela shamar loy, but he's telling him, Asay kruv echad mikatza mizeh mitam shavar. But minimum, you have to make 1 and 1. In other words, first Hashem tells Moshe, V'yasisa, you should make 2 and 2. But I'm just letting you know, V'aseh, it's okay if you make 1 and 1. And from there, Shlomo learned to add another 2 kruvim. So Rabbi said what we're learning is that even though in the times of the Mishkan there were only 2 kruvim on the Aron, nevertheless, when Shlomo added another 2, this was not some kind of new chidush, an invention of Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech is not inventing this, but in fact, perhaps Hashem even told Moshe to do this, or at least Hashem told Moshe, I am letting you know that a time will come that Shlomo HaMelech will make what? Another 2 kruvim.
Why would Hashem want to do this, though? Why would he tell him?
So the question is, Rabbi Sai.
Make him feel bad or something? Like
No.
somebody else doing something?
Rabbi Sai. What we want to know is that even though Miyale beside Hashem, who knows the secrets, who understands the mystical qualities of 2 Keruvim, of 4 Keruvim, and what the Keruvim represent. But Rabbi say, how do we understand this? That Moshe Rabbeinu only made 2 Keruvim, and Moshe Rabbeinu felt 2 Keruvim was good enough. We don't need 2, we don't need 4. And Shlomo HaMelech comes along and says, you know what? It's a different world. We need another 2 Keruvim. If 2 was good enough for Moshe, why wasn't 2 good enough for Shlomo? What do the Keruvim represent? What do the additional 2 Keruvim represent? Why didn't Moshe need them? Why did Shlomo need them? And what do we take out of this? Okay. So this is this question is raised by the Ber Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Salant, an amazing sefer. And before we come to that, let us, Rabbi say, come to the Badim. We said about the Badim that the Badim lo yasuru mimenu. You cannot remove the Badim from the Aron. And the question is, why not? Comes the Meshech Chachma. Look at number 12. The Meshech Chachma says, Amru Chazal, Hameser Badei Aron Loike. Chazal say, if you remove the Badim, you get Malchus. Right? So Rabbi say, you eat shatnez, you wear shatnez, you get Malchus. You don't get Malchus for eating shatnez, so don't worry. Okay? If you eat treif, you get Malchus. But if you remove the Badei Ha'aron, you also get Malchus. Right? The pasuk says, "Hamesa b'adei aron loike." V'nei mizbeach siv v'hayu ha'badim b'seisos. By the mizbeach it says the badim should be in it when you carry it, and by the shulchan it says the badim should be in the shulchan when you carry it. Mashein kein ba'aron does not say by the aron the badim should be in the aron when you carry it, but rather what? The badim are permanently connected to the aron. Rabbi say, why is that? Says the Meshech Chachma. There's a very big misconception. There's a very big misconception in the world, and that is, you have Talmidei Chachamim, you have people who spend their day learning, Marbitzei Torah, and so forth. Question is, how do they pay the bills? So there's a misconception. Well, how do they pay the bills? That's their problem. Let them get a job, right? Let them become a productive member of society. That's their problem. Let them get a degree. Let Torah and derech eretz, right? And all the other abused terminologies. Mm-hmm. But says the Meshech Chachma that what is the Aron? The other Aron represents Torah, and the crown of the Aron represents the Keser Torah. But there's one thing that this Torah is lacking. Very nice. You have the luchos, and you have the Aron, and you have the crown. And you have the crown. But Rabbi say, you know what we're lacking over here? How's the Talmid Chacham going to pay his bills? Who's going to support the Talmid Chacham? How's he going to live? Let him eat carobs. Right? Let him eat carobs and let him suffer. No. Somebody has to support him. Who's going to support him? Those are the Badim of the Aron. Those are the poles. The poles represent the support of Torah. V'nira, api medrash, sheha-Aron roimez l'keser Torah. The medrash tells us the Aron represents the Torah. Shehu munach l'chol haroitz likach. The Torah is available to anybody. Anybody who wants to come to take the Torah can take the Torah. Now, v'hinei ha-Talmid Chacham tzarich sad l'toim chai. Talmid Chacham needs support. Who's going to support him? Sheyehei ashir meitil malai lekisai ketodos ishromi. The wealthy man, the working man, the person who is gainfully employed, he not only has to worry about himself, he has to make himself into a pole. Uvazet Torasei miskayemes, and thereby the Torah is fulfilled. And that is what the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma. The Gemara asks, the stira. Then in Pasuk Yud Ches it says, V'asisa Moshe, you make the Aron. And then in Pasuk Yud Tes it says, V'aseh, let the Aron be made. From here, Chazal derive that a Talmid Chacham in the city, the people of the city are obligated to do the work for the Talmid Chacham. The Talmid Chacham doesn't go to work. The people work for him. V'lazeh bo habadim. That's why you have the Badim. Because you think the Badim, tzedakah, yeah. I give a quarter in the morning, and if I make it out to Mariv, I give another dime later on.
Wow.
No. The badim can never be removed. What does that mean? That means if you're not a Talmud Chacham, when should you be supporting the yeshivas, the Keruvim, Tamid Chachamim? All day long, every minute, every hour, every second. Don't stop holding up the Torah. If you're not learning, if your head is not in the Gemara, make it your business that there's something else you're doing all the time. The badim, lo yasuru mimenu, it's an isser. You can never ever stop. Never stop. It's a permanent obligation. It's a permanent thing to think about. The same way, v'higisei ba yoimam v'layla, right? How often do we have to learn? Not a little bit when I'm in the mood in the morning. No, the obligation is constantly resting upon us. You know how a person has to feel that not only is there an obligation of Talmud Torah at all times, the obligation of Hachzakas HaTorah is la'olam, lo yasuru mimenu, never stop, never stop. And believe me you, and believe you me, there are not any shortages of being able to be Mekayim this. Yeah, when it comes to donating Sifrei Torah, everybody loves to donate a brand new Sefer Torah. But you go into any yeshiva and see how far behind they are in the Kailo checks. You go to any yeshiva and see what they pay Rabbeim. You go to any shul and see what they pay Rabbanim. You'll see that this is a mitzvah that could be easily be thought about at all times. The badim are never removed. One second. They should always be there. Like Chazal say, that if a person didn't learn a blessed word of Torah, and didn't teach, and didn't keep, and didn't do anything, and he didn't really have enough funds to support Torah, but he did, you hear the guy? The guy never learned a word in his life. And he doesn't have money either. And he extended himself to support. He's baruch. He's blessed. I know people like that.
Wow.
And Rabbi say on the flip side, you know what Chazal say? Lamad, guy learns. V'limed, he teaches. V'asa, and he could have supported Torah. And he didn't. He's Arur. So, you hear this?
He's Arur?
Arur. Not, and then we put him in the Aroin.
You become an Aron, yeah. Got a piece of wood.
I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
the time of the Gemara, when they're Batlonim, 10 Batlonim.
Yes.
10 Balanim. Balanim meant that there's
Talmidei Chachamim.
the learning people and who paid for them, who supported them. Okay. So Rabbi say, the Meshech Chochmah sees in the din of Tabois Ha'aron, Yu Habadim Lo Yasur Mimenu, that the importance of never removing the badim of the Aron is, you can't stop for a moment supporting Torah. It's something that rests on the shoulders of a Jew at all times. Rabbi say, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky takes this a little further. Says Rabbi Yaakov, that the Gemara tells us in Masechta Pesachim, look at number 13, the Gemara tells us, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, anyone who does business with the funds of the Talmud Chacham. Which means like this. You know, it used to be, you had businessmen. But businessmen, they needed capital to do business. So the Talmud Chacham would give the businessman $1,000. The businessman would do business with the money. And whatever money the businessman would gain, he would then give to the Talmud Chacham. In other words, the Talmud Chacham could sit peacefully, and the businessman would use his capital to make money. Says the Gemara, anybody who does that, Zoicha v'yoshev b'yeshiva shomala. In other words, anyone who supports the Talmud Chacham, anyone who supports the Talmud Chacham will be Zoicha to sit in the heavenly court, in the heavenly yeshiva. In other words, here you have a guy, he didn't learn his whole life. He doesn't know Masechta Brachos from Masechta B'chairos. He doesn't know the rush in the back of the page from the rush between his shoulders. Right? He doesn't know it. And the guy supported Torah. La'asid Lavai, this guy is going to be sitting next to the Talmud Chacham in the Yeshiva Shomal. In other words, even if you don't know Torah in this world, if you supported Torah in this world, you will be Zoicha to sit in the Yeshiva Shomal.
Wonderful.
So says,
Wonderful appeal, Rabbi.
yeah.
No, but it says you're going to understand.
Says, like the pasuk says, Ki b'tzel ha'chachma, b'tzel ha'kesef.
I just sit there
No, the Gemara says he's going to sit there.
and understand also every word.
Okay, that's
my
it.
Rebbe's told me.
Oh, very
It
beautiful.
doesn't say it
It
here.
doesn't say that.
No, but what I said, my Rebbe's told me.
Okay.
I remember Sechit
That's
Fried, the big
13a.
Okay, that's what it says. The Shulchan Aruch Harav adds
Every
that.
tzos, every
Okay,
yeshivas.
Rabbi say, so says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. Imagine the Talmud Chacham. He's in the Olam HaEmes.
Wow.
He doesn't need the paycheck. He doesn't need the stipend in the Olam HaEmes. He doesn't need the usher then. So you would think at that point the usher, the supporter, becomes obsolete. He's not needed anymore. Says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, you see from this Gemara that whatever support someone gave to Torah in this world, in the next world is when he reaps the main benefits. In the next world is when the supporter reaps the benefits of all his support. He's sitting right next to the Talmud Chacham in the Yeshiva Shamala. Ah, that's the meaning of Lo Yasur Mimenu Li'olam, forever. Listen, says Rabbi Yaakov, the Torah is saying, even at a time that the Aron doesn't need the Badim, even when the Talmud Chacham doesn't need the support, that's when the Badim are going to be right there. In the Olam HaEmes, when the Talmud Chacham doesn't need the Badim anymore. He doesn't need the support. That is when the supporter is going to be sitting right next to him, the front row seats, reaping all of the learning that the Talmud Chacham did. Says Chasam Sofer in the Taras Moshe, this week's Parsha. He says over in the name of his holy Rabbi, the Chassid Shebekahuna,
14.
Moreinu Rav Nosson Adler. What does he say? The Aron represents the Torah, like it says the Luchais. And the two Keruvim that sit on the Aron are looking at the Torah. Those are the two Tamil Chachamim who converse with each other b'halacha, doing their utmost to try to figure out what does it say in the Luchais. And what are the Badim? Are the Machzikei Torah. Because the Torah is an Eitz Chayim l'machazikim ba. Now, you ready for this? It looks like here you have a guy sitting in yeshiva, or you have a Talmud Chacham. And who's paying the bills? Some other guy. And that other guy thinks, wow, look how I'm supporting him. Look, he eats because of me. He lives in a house because of me. Look what I'm doing for him. But look at the poles of the Aron. It looks like the poles are holding up the Aron, when in fact the poles are not holding up the Aron. The Aron is holding up those who hold it. So it says of Nosson Adler, it looks like when you give money to the yeshiva, I'm a Groisa Nadvin. I'm supporting the yeshiva. Anechtigin Tug, you're supporting the yeshiva. The yeshiva is supporting you. You're breathing because you gave that money to the yeshiva. You're breathing because you supported the Torah. So it's not that you're supporting the Torah. If you're Zaychet to make yourself a pole, you should know the Aron is holding on to you and you're not holding on to the Aron. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number one is, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, indispensable part of the Aron are the Badim that are never ever allowed to be removed from the Aron. And they know, L'olam, forever. Why forever? Because not for a day, not for a moment, not for a millisecond can a person say, what's the yeshiva's going to do? What are the Tamichim going to do? I don't know. It's their problem. They should have listened to their mothers. They should have, No. If somebody's learning Torah, it's the people's problem. It's not their problem. It's Klal Yisrael's issue. It's Klal Yisrael's issue. L'olam. L'olam means don't allow your mind to be twisted and to think, you know what, maybe don't worry about it. Gemes Chanetza, Ribbon Hashem will help, right? The Eivishter will help. No, you'll help. You'll help. La'olam. You'll help. And why la'olam, says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky? Because even in Olam Haba, when you're not needed anymore, the support is not needed, you'll still be there. And that is why the Aron is noiseas noisav. It looks like you're supporting them, they're supporting you. Okay. Rabbi say, let's speak for a moment about the position of the Keruvim. Take a look in the Gemara Bava Basra. The Gemara Bava Basra asks the Stiram Psukim, because it says in this week's Parsha about the Keruvim, Upneihem ish elachiv. They were facing each other. Yeah? The Keruvim were facing each other. And it says in Divrei Hayamim, Upneihem labayis. that the Keruvim were not facing each other. They were facing the walls of the Beis HaMikdash. So how do we deal with that? Let's take a look at number 15. The Gemara asks the stira between a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim and a pasuk in this week's Parsha. Keitzad heinoimdim. How did the Keruvim stand? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar. Chad Amar Pneihem Ishalachiv. One pasuk says they faced each other. The Chad Amar Pneihem Labayis. And one of them said they faced the Beis HaMikdash. So Gemara asks, according to the opinion that they faced each other, like it says in this week's Parsha, Haksiv upneim labayis, but it says they faced the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, like Kasha, Kan bizman she Yisrael oisin ritzon shel makom, Kan bizman she'ein Yisrael oisin ritzon shel makom. When Klal Yisrael were on a very high madrega, that was manifest. That was manifest in the way the Keruvim faced each other. So in other words, the Keruvim faced each other, they looked at each other straight in the face. That represented the fact that Hashem was beaming down on Klal Yisrael. We were doing a Ritzon Shel Makom. But when Klal Yisrael was not doing Ritzon Shel Makom, the Keruvim were facing the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Gemara talks about the other Manda Amar. There is another Manda Amar that says that the Keruvim were positioned facing the Beis HaMikdash. The Keruvim were positioned facing the Beis HaMikdash. Ulamanda Amar Pneim Labayis, and according to the Manda Amar, that focuses on the pasuk in Divrei Hayamim by the Keruvim of Shlomo that they were facing the Beis HaMikdash. Haksiv Upneim Mishalachav. What about the pasuk that they were facing each other? Says the Gemara, Dimitzadidiyatstudi. They were on the side, partially facing each other, partially facing the Beis HaMikdash. So Rabbi say, very interesting. That means that in the pasuk that talks about the Keruvim by Shlomo HaMelech are saying that they weren't necessarily facing each other head on. They were partially facing each other, partially facing the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi explains, like when you talk to your friend. When you talk to your friend, you don't look him straight on, you turn to the side. So says Rashi, explaining this Manda Amar, in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, the Keruvim were positioned slightly different. They were mitzadidiyat studi. They were a little bit off to the side. Explains the Nefesh HaChaim. Now there's a very long piece in the Nefesh HaChaim about, I'll tell you a little bit of the introduction, and how he explains this Gemara is very unclear. But we're just going to glean a certain thing from the Nefesh HaChaim. The Nefesh HaChaim talks about the famous machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Which Keruvim? The one at the outside or the inside? On which one is talking about? The one that Shlomo make, the new ones, or
the Gemara? The one. Let's assume it's only talking about the ones on either the ones on the inside.
I don't know, the inside or the outside,
or both.
Okay.
It's unclear. It's unclear because I would have said the pasuk of Pneim Ish Alachiv is talking about the Keruvim of Moshe. Yes. The pasuk of Pneim Ish Pneim Labayis is talking about the Keruvim of Shlomo. Yes. But the Gemara doesn't answer that way.
No.
So the Gemara is not really clear. We're going to see the Chassam Sofer explains it that it's referring to both. So I'm leaving it a little bit vague. Okay? I'm leaving it a little bit vague. So I want to say one thing from the Nefesh HaChaim. Nefesh HaChaim talks about the famous machlokes. The pasuk says V'higisa by Yom V'layla. You have to learn day and night. So the Gemara in Masechta Bracha says day and night. I would think that's literal. That all day long and all night long you learn. And what's with the money? The chimney, the windows, the mailbox. There are a lot of openings in the house that the money could come in.
Say all day and all night. It says day and night.
No, but that means all day and all night. That's what it means. That's what you.
Where do you see that?
That says the Gemara. I would think it means. Says the Gemara. Therefore, the Torah comes along and it says v'yasafta deganecha, that you have to work. You have to work. In other words, v'yasafta deganecha teaches me that when it says learn day and night, it doesn't mean all day and all night, but it means v'yasafta deganecha. You work. Says Rabbi Shmuel, haneg bahen minag derech eretz. You have to live in a normal way. In other words, you have to work also. But says Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, if a person's going to plow during the plowing season and thresh during the threshing season, says Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, Torah matehei aleha. But rather, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says, when you're doing the right thing, You learn, you don't work at all, and where's the money going to come from? Man will come down minas shamayim. But when you're not doing the will of God, then you work. In other words, if you're doing the will of Hashem, Rabbi say, if you're doing the will of Hashem, people will work for you. When you're not doing the will of Hashem, according to Rabbi Shimon Yochai, then, says the Gemara, you'll get it somehow. Now, first the Nefesh HaChaim turns to discuss the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says, Haneg bahen minag derech eretz. So says the Nefesh HaChaim, do you think Rabbi Shmuel holds that you're actually allowed to go to work? Chas v'sholem. Okay, just listen to what I have to say before you jump on, the first sentence. Says Rabbi Shmuel, says the Nefesh HaChaim, you think Rabbi Shmuel means you actually stop learning to go to work? How could a person be pirish minat Torah even for a moment? Or, for instance, if you look at the Gemara Brachos Lamed Hey Amud Beis, Rabbi tells his Talmidim, in Nisan and Tishrei, don't come to the Beis Medrash, you have to prepare for Yom Tov. You think Rabbi was telling his Talmidim that for 2 months a year, you're batlanim completely? Says the Nefesh HaChaim, Pshat in Rabbi Shmuel is, even when you're working, you should always be thinking about Torah. Hanig bohen minig derech eretz. Even when you're hanig bohen minig derech eretz. Act in the Torah with the derech eretz. In other words, while you're working, your mind should be occupied in learning, right? Halavai, the biggest tzaddikim today should be able to do this. Right? But that's how Rabbi Shmuel learned. Yeah, what's Torah and derech eretz? Torah and derech eretz doesn't mean you work 10 hours a day and you come home and you open up the Sefer 10. Torah and derech eretz mean you learn 24 hours a day. That's the Torah and derech eretz of the Nefesh HaChaim. Okay, Rabbi said very, very, very high madriga. That's in Rabbi Shmuel. Hanig bohen minig derech eretz. Comes up Shimon Yochai. Shimon Yochai says, even if you're learning all day while you're working, that's still not good enough. That's still not good enough. What do you have to do? If you're doing with Ritzaynei Shel Makom, you learn. And where's the money going to come from? The window, the mailbox, the chimney. So now the question is, and what about the pasuk v'yasafta deganecha, working? What does Rabbi Shimon Yochai do with that pasuk? That's bizman she'ein oisin ritzaynei shel makom. That's when we're not doing the will of Hashem. So ask the Nefesh HaChaim, listen to this. Again, you right? You heard this? Yeah. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says, when you're doing ritzaynei shel makom, there is no v'yasafta deganecha. There's no work. So the Nefesh HaChaim says, I have one simple question. The pasuk v'yasafta deganecha is preceded by what? V'haya im shamaya tishmeu el mitzvaysai asher anochi mitzav eschem la'ava es Hashem leikechem u'la'avdoi b'chol levavchem u'chol nafshchem. So it's talking about oisin ritzaynei shel makom. It says shamaya tishmeu, right? Asher li'ava es Hashem leikechem. We're talking about a guy, he's listening to every word of Hashem. He loves Hashem with all of his heart and all of his soul. So how could you say v'yasafta deganecha is talking to somebody who's not doing the will of Hashem? The psukim are talking about Klal Yisrael doing the will of Hashem, right? What are the psukim preceded by? It's right, the second Parsha of Shema. V'hayim Shemaya Tishma Mitzvah, right? So says the Nefesh HaChaim. The Gemara says, Harbe asu Rabbi Shmuel v'yalsu b'yadam. Many people have taken the path of Rabbi Shmuel, Torah and work, and it works for them. It's an effective path. But many people have acted like Rav Shimon Yochai, and it didn't work. Right? We know that. People who try just to learn, it doesn't always work. So what do we see from here, says the Nefesh HaChaim? That for the Rabbim, for the majority, for the multitude, for most people, Rav Shimon Yochai doesn't work. The Rabbim cannot do like Rav Shimon Yochai. But an individual who feels he can do like Rav Shimon Yochai, he should. So listen to what the pasuk is saying. V'haya im shamaya tishmeu el mitzvaysai asher anochi mitzav eschem hayom li'ahava. It's talking about the majority of Klal Yisrael. V'yasafta is talking to a yachid. You ever notice that? In Kriya Shema, it starts off talking about the Rabbim, and then all of a sudden it switches to the yachid. You know why? Because of course the Rabbim has to go to work. But v'yasafta deganecha, the yachid, who is able not to, then he's ein oisim ritzaynei shel makom. V'yasafta deganecha is talking to the yachid. Okay. with that introduction, the Nefesh HaChaim says the following. You ready for this? In the times of the Midbar, when Klal Yisrael were in the Midbar, what was life like in the Midbar? Were people doctors, lawyers, accountants, carpenters, electricians, plumbers? No. What did they do for a living? Every Jew sat and learned Nitnu HaTorah Ela La'ochlei Hamad. Klal Yisrael in the Midbar were on the ideal level. They were like the Yechidim of Rav Shema Yochai. They were sitting there, every male in his tent. What did he do for a living? The man came down in Hashemayim. There was no working, there was no support. You didn't need any Zavulans. You didn't need anybody to support the Jews. They were supporting in Hashemayim. So, what did the Keruvim look like in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu? In the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what the Keruvim looked like? They were facing each other, head on, which represents, says the Nefesh HaChaim, the fact that they were living on the ideal level. The Nefesh HaChaim learns one Keruv is God, is Ribbon Shalom, and one Keruv is Klal Yisrael. In other words, they were facing Hashem completely. They put their bitachon completely in the Ribbon Shalom. And for our purposes, we could say, like the Chassam Sofer, the two Keruvim represent the two Talmidei Chachamim. In other words, the two Talmidei Chachamim were single-mindedly devoted only, Rabbi said, to what? Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah. They were not deviate, they did not turn away from it even one iota. They didn't have to turn, I'm going to have to be reliant on a generous individual, I'm going to have to be reliant on a supporter. They just faced head on, knowing that the Parnasa came down in Hashemayim from the man. But in the times of Shlomo, Klal Yisrael had to turn away a little bit from the straight ideal path. They couldn't anymore just sit in the Beis Medrash and think, where's the Parnasa going to come from? It's going to come down in Hashemayim. We're going to open up our windows and the food is going to fly in, right? Here at Klal Yisrael in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, they're living in Eretz Yisrael. They didn't just sit and their Dalet Amos and food came in Hashemayim. They had to work the land, right? That's reality. Even Boaz, right? Boaz was in the field. He's a Gadol Adar. Yeah, but it's not the Dar Midbar. It's not the Dar Midbar. So if you're living in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, how were the Keruvim presenting themselves? They were not head-on. Head-on represents single-minded focus and devotion only on Talmud Torah. But in the times of Shlomo, the Keruvim turned a little bit. What does that mean? The Talmidei Chachamim started to think, how am I going to be able to support myself? Where's my support going to come from? I can't rely only on the man min hashamayim. I have to rely on some normal human means. Ad kan l'shayin ha-nefesh HaChaim. In other words, the Nefesh HaChaim learns, in the times of Moshe, the Keruvim had a single-minded devotion to Talmud Torah. In the times of Shlomo, they had to turn a little bit. Comes the Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer, Mamish, Dvarim Niflam, unbelievable words, in the Torah's Moshe at number 20. And he says like this, that in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, you have the two Talmidei Chachamim. They're learning the Chavrusa. They don't have to turn away. They don't have to think, where is their Parnasa going to come from? It came from the man. The man came down in Hashemayim. It came directly from the Ribbono Shel Olam. And La'asid Lavai, when Mashiach comes, we're going to go back to the same type of lifestyle, where a Jew will be able to sit b'menuchas hanefesh. And where's your Parnasa going to come from? What does the Navi Yeshaya say? V'hayu b'nei nechar acharechem v'yamdu zarim l'retzeinchem. The nations of the world will tend to our needs. We won't have to worry about tzedakah, parnasa, nedavos, and so forth. A Jew will be able to sit b'menuchas hanefesh like the two Keruvim. But says the Torah's Moshe, the Heilige Chassam Sofer, in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, they couldn't sit there anymore facing each other and just expecting to get Parnasa straight from the Ribbono Shel Olam, because it was a different era. They weren't living in a miraculous generation like in the Midbar. They were living in a natural time. And where did Talmidei Chachamim get their Parnasa from? It didn't fly in from the window. Yisachar had to rely on Zevulun. The people, Talmidei Chachamim, had to rely on other Jews to be able to support them. So those who were learning had to rely on the merchants, the workers, the people, the generosity of their brothers. So Shlomo HaMelech says, now that I see in my times that the Tamir Chachamim, the two Keruvim on the Arayin, are no longer single-mindedly devoted to the Torah, because they can't just rely on Ribbon Shalom. They have to seek some degree of natural means, so they're turning away. They're looking. Who's going to support me? The Tamir Chacham are looking, who's going to support me. So Shlomo HaMelech says, you know what I'm going to do? I have to take the two Zavulans and bring them into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. I have to make two new Keruvim. Who are the two new Keruvim? The two Zavulans that support the two Yisachars. In the times of Moshe, we didn't need any Zavulans. Because every Yid was a Yisachar. And the Parnasa came in, Min HaShamayim, from the mud. But in the times of Shlomo, it was Olam K'minhagei Noyeg. The world was in a very natural way. You couldn't just sit there single-mindedly devoted to Torah. The Tamei Chacham were peeking. Where's it going to come from? So Shlomo HaMelech had to... And Rebbe Shem gave him the permission. The Rebbe Shem gave him the allowance. The Rebbe Shem told Moshe that a time will come where you're going to have to add another two Keruvim. So says Chassam Sofer, Mamish, beautiful. He said, look at number 20. He says, the Ha'inyan Kach, Ki Shnei Keruvim Ha'ikarim, the two main Keruvim, Al Shnei Talmidei Chachamim, are the two Torah sages, Asher Pneim Ish Alachiv, that they face each other, Sheyu Noichim Zalazeh, Upneim Al Kaparas, they're facing the Kaparas. Perush, what does that mean? They face the kaparas. Al ikar haluchos lahakim divrei haTorah hazos zakol pri megamasa. That is their entire focus. Ach tzrichim oid shnei Keruvim. We need another two Keruvim. Bebechina Zavulan, the Zavulans, the supporters. Hanoisim enoisim emasu umatan, who deal in business kadei lekayim ulahachzik ashnei hatamir chachamim ha'oiskim haTorah. By the way, the Zavulans, they're big. They're taller than the other Keruvim. These two Keruvim are massive. The Torah always gives precedence to Zavulun over Yisachar. Smach Zavulun b'tzeisecha v'Yisachar b'elecha. And their job is not just to give them money and then expect something out of it. Or, I'm giving money, so now I have to have a dayah. Now I have to express my opinion. No, they're supporting, they're protecting, they're hovering, they're providing complete and absolute menucha. He says, "Va'kruvim hashnayim ha'achem al Zavulan." When the world, he says Chassam Sofer, is in a perfect state, like in the future, where everyone knows Hashem mi gedolim ad ketanim, and everyone will be tamich chachamim. So what does the pasuk say? V'hayu b'nei nechar acharechem v'yamdu zarm l'retzonechem. Then we don't need Yisachar and Zavulan. Everyone will be like Yisachar, and then we'll only need two Keruvim, like in the times of Moshe. But in the times of Shlomo, Eloi zachinu adayin lekach, and therefore Shlomo HaMelech made another two Keruvim. Shemehem yagia shefal hamachzikim. And Hashem, says Chassam Sofer, listen to what Hashem is telling Moshe. Hashem gave permission to Moshe to make four. But he's telling him, you know what? I would prefer if there are only two. And therefore Hashem says like this, you should make two Keruvim on the two ends, which means each end should have two. In other words, the first thing Hashem tells Moshe is, here's the basic halacha. You could have two on one side, two on the other. The two Yisachar is on the top of the Aron, right? They're part of the Aron. They're an extension of the Aron. They never, right? The Tamil Chacham have Kedushas HaTorah. They're mamish, a piece of Torah mamish. But, Rabbi Sai, at certain times they need two Keruvim. Now, Rabbi Sai, the two Zavulans are not outside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. They're in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. They're just as holy. They don't have any less sanctity. And in a way, perhaps they're even greater. They're bigger.
But they're not
bigger.
Aaron.
But they're not, right, they're not, because they don't have Kedushas HaTorah, but they're still in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Right? So at first Hashem tells Moshe, you can make two and two. But, V'asei, my advice is, I would be much better off, and I would be happier if at least now for these 40 years, you only have two. You only have two.
And also they made from wood.
You only have two.
Gold.
Now Rabbi Sai, we said in the times of Shlomo that the two Keruvim are facing each other. So now the Chassam Sofer learns that means the Yisachars are facing the Zavulans. So we would understand that to mean that The Zavulans have to make sure they're always facing Yisachar, that they're going to work. We feel, I go to work for me, and if there's anything extra, I'll put it in the pushka. No, you're not going to work for you. You're going to work for the Yisachar. You're going to work for Torah. You're working to be able, right? You have to know, which Keruvim are you? You got to be one or the other. Yisachar or Zavulan. Either you're Torah or you're supporting. You have to have a chelek in it. You have to have a chelek. But the idea that they have to be facing each other means that those who are able to work have to constantly be focusing on being able to support. But says the Chassam Sofer works the other way also. The ones who are on top of the Aron, the ones who are connected to the Aron, always have to be worried about those who are not connected, to make sure to give to them, to guide, to provide direction, and so forth. Says the Chassam Sofer, look in number 21, the Drush of Chassam Sofer. He says, on 5 lines from the end, not only the Zavulans, the supporters, have to be focused on those who are learning, but the other way also. The Tamei Chacham have to be careful, overseeing the Nadvanim, to V'yadrichem B'derech Yeshara, and the Ashirei Ha'am had to be Mashkiach on the Tamei Chachamim. But says the Chassam Sofer, when they turn away from each other, that's what brings the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Because what did Klal Yisrael see at the time of the Churban? The Keruvim, right? He says when the two sets of Keruvim, when the Keruvim of Moshe are not mashkiach on the Keruvim of Shlomo, when those who are able to support are not focused on their tafkid, when those who are learning are not focused, in other words, the tafkid of each group is for the others. It's for the others. That is what is the kiyum of Klal Yisrael. But when the two sets of Keruvim are not focused on each other, that is the Churban Ha'umah, that is the destruction of Klal Yisrael. So Abaisai, we have over here a very, very powerful statement of Rabbeinu Yoina. Rabbeinu Yoina tells us, very, very powerful.
What's the number?
Number 21.
21, yeah.
He says, V'chayiv adam lasik b'Torah b'chol yom. Person has to be involved in learning Torah every day. Like the pasuk says, V'yakev tishnan, fine. And it says, and Chazal say, Talmud Torah keneged chula. And the Sifri tells us, just like Talmud Torah is greater than every mitzvah, the punishment of Bittul Torah is more severe than any Avera. You hear this? More severe than Avodah Zarah, more severe than Gilui Arayos, more severe than Shvichas Damim, is not making use of your time. Not making use of time. Here you have a guy, he's sitting in jail, he's behind bars. What did he do? He's a mass murderer. And another guy, what's he doing at night? He's flipping his cards. On one hand, in one way, not making use of your time is a more severe crime. One second, let me finish. Is a more severe. That is why we find Vitar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim V'lo Vitar Alavayin Bittul Torah. Says Rabbeinu Yoina. So now we're in big trouble. We're in hot water. Because as big tzaddikim as we are, who could make the claim that we are really making good use of our time? And we're fulfilling this great obligation that rests on our shoulders of Talmud Torah? Says Rabbeinu Yoina, there is only one way for a person to free himself from this indictment. The answer to everything is money. And it's not a joke. What's the answer? Look what he writes. If you want to escape the bitter punishment, go find somebody who learns and give him money. So he says, go to yeshiva, ask them, do you need money? Then they'll tell you, yeah, we're only 90 years behind on our, Yisase b'tzarchei ha-talmidim v'rabbanim ha'loimdim shem shamayim v'yazer b'schiros ha'rabbanan k'dei sheyamdu v'iroi v'yu oiskim atar al yadai. Like Chazal tell us, it's chaim hilam ha'chazikim ba. Doesn't say the Torah gives life to those who learn it. You know why? Because who could really say they're learning enough? Why doesn't Shlomo HaMelech say the Torah gives life to those who learn it? You know what it seems like from Rabbeinu Yonah? You know why the Torah, it doesn't say the Torah gives life to those who learn it? Because how many people could say in this world, yeah, I'm always learning Torah. I never waste my time. So Shlomo HaMelech is not even going to dare to bother to say, the Torah gives life to those who learn it. Because who could really say they learn it enough? But the Torah gives life to those who support it. Because at least that we could do. At least that much we could do. Says the Chafetz Chaim, one second, I'm not finished, one second. Says the Chafetz Chaim, he says, number 22. Rabbi, if you don't know where we're up to, just listen carefully. Please don't ask. Says the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim says, yeah, he says,
That's what he means.
he says, after quoting Rabbeinu Yonah, he says, "Afilu oisanu anashim shehem ba'atzmam loimdei Torah u'mekayimei mitzvos b'Yisrael." Even people who do learn. Okay, now we're not talking about ashirim. We're talking about loimdei Torah, koilo men. Even people are learning. Gam kein chiyuv gadol aleim lahachzik es haTorah. They also have a tremendous obligation to support. V'yim lav hareheim b'chlal oror. Like he quotes Rabbeinu Yonah, that somebody who can't learn and can't teach and can't keep the Torah and he supports Torah, he's baruch. Sometimes people say, look at this guy. He's completely an oisvarf. He doesn't keep anything. But he just has his name on the yeshiva. It's a big thing. It's a big thing because Chazal say, if you can't learn and you can't teach and you can't keep and you support Torah, you're blessed.
Baruch.
Now it means he can keep. If the guy could keep, he's going to be in hot water also. But somebody, an Erlicha guy, he's learning and he's keeping and he's teaching. If he could support and he doesn't support, says the Chafetz Chaim, Harehu b'chlal oror.
Oh boy.
And the Chafetz Chaim says the following, that someone who's machzik loimdei Torah, someone who supports Torah, even if in this world he's an Am Haaretz Gomor, he doesn't know a word, he doesn't know anything, he doesn't know a Rashi from the Tosfos. Someone who supports Torah, he will know the Torah in Olam Haba. Why? He says the Chafetz Chaim Sedavar Pashat. Because if you have schar in the learning, then what do you mean? You supported someone who learns, so you're going to be rewarded because you supported. So the reward is that you'll know. You know why? Says the Chafetz Chaim an amazing thing. Everybody wants Olam Haba. Everybody wants Gan Eden. You know where the main Gan Eden comes from? Knowing Torah. So every day we have to ask ourselves, do we know Torah? That's going to be a very serious question. Do we know Torah?
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here, right? We're trying. Rabbi say, there's always a way out. I once saw the Chida asks, you don't live in Eretz Yisrael, so how could you be Mekayim the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael? He says, you give money to Eretz Yisrael, so you have a Chelek, you're also Mekayim. So, right? It's not a joke. Whatever. But it's a serious thing. Rabbi say, in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, all of Klal Yisrael was on the highest level. The Parnasa came from the Rebbeinu Shalom. You only had 2 Keruvim standing on the Aron. But in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, the Keruvim started to turn away. They started to turn away from that ideal lifestyle that maybe we're not on that level. And they started looking, where is Me'ayin Yavai Ezri? And they had to come onto natural means. So what happens? Shlomo HaMelech put into the Kodesh HaKadoshim 2 tremendous 10 amos. 10 amos means it's good asik. It goes ad l'rakia. 10 amos it goes all the way up. You only need 10 fachim for that, but it goes all the way up to Shamayim. Rabbi say those who support Torah, they're in the Kodesh HaKadoshim together with the Torah itself, and these are the Keruvim of Shlomo HaMelech, and these are the inyan of the Badim lo yasser mimenu li olam, that even in Olam Haba, when you think the Lomdei Torah don't need the Badim anymore, no. That's when the Badim don't budge. They're sitting in the Yeshiva Shalmala together with Tamich Rabbi.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.